Hi, my name is Heather Uri. I'm a professor of psychology at Tufts University, and I have recorded this video to share with you some information about applying to PhD programs in psychology, including ours at Tufts. I will divide this into 3 videos. The first video will talk about earning a psychology PhD at Tufts, what you can expect from the Tufts community, and some information about our program and its funding model. In the second video, I'll talk about what it's like to be in graduate school more generally. And in the third video, I'll offer a bit of an application workshop with emphasis on helping you think through how to create an effective and successful application to graduate programs, with a particular emphasis on the research statement. So without further ado, let's talk about earning a psychology PhD at Tufts. One of the things I'd like to convey is what you can expect from the Tufts psychology community. At Tufts, we very much value diversity. This is something that is center stage in the way we operate our programs and in how we interact with one another. And it's conveyed nicely, I think, through this statement, which is on our department website, which says, "The Department of Psychology at Tufts University views the creation and maintenance of a diverse and inclusive environment to be essential to rigorous thought, informed analysis, and scholarly excellence." And this value is reflected, I think, in many ways in our program. Most obviously, probably through the fact that we have an active equity, diversity, and inclusion committee, and also because we are committed to recruiting and supporting students from diverse backgrounds. In general, I'd like to also talk about what it means to earn a psychology PhD, and this is not specific to our program, but is more general to the idea of earning a PhD in psychology anywhere. What is it for? The goal of a PhD program is to train you how to make original contributions to knowledge. That's really what a PhD program is for, and therefore it's a means to becoming an expert in a specific area of psychology. Now, in our program, there's an emphasis on experimental methods, so that's not always the case at all PhD programs in psychology. What is common to all PhD programs in psychology is they will be training you how to make an original contribution to knowledge. At Tufts, our program therefore has 7 different objectives, all of which are related to this idea of training our graduate students how to make original contributions to knowledge. Things like written communication, oral communication, reading and synthesizing conclusions from published literature, conducting your own independent research, statistical competence so that you can actually draw conclusions based on the data that you've collected in your independent research, professional visibility and teaching competence. These are all objectives that we believe contribute directly to learning how to make original contributions to knowledge, and therefore they are the objectives of our program at Tufts. Of course, how do you become an expert? Well, in part you become an expert because you work hard at it and you do a lot of things independently, but you don't do it alone. At Tufts and at many places, we have a mentorship model in which graduate students, prospective graduate students, apply to work with a specific faculty member who will be their advisor. And once admitted to Tufts and you get started, you will learn how to make original contributions to knowledge by conducting research in your prospective and now actual advisor's lab. So that's why it's important when you apply to graduate programs in psychology, including ours, that you know who among the faculty are best suited to help you learn how to make original contributions to research. And that's because you're going to learn how to do that by conducting research in your advisor's lab. So your application will need to make a strong case for why you're a good fit to join their lab. So what you see here is a timeline that displays the 5-year timeline for the milestone structure of our graduate program. And there are a number of milestones, therefore, that students meet along the way. So in the first year, students in our program complete from start to finish what's called the first year project. They design and conduct and analyze and write up a manuscript that relays the results of a study to be conducted over the course of the first year. And this milestone culminates in a presentation that takes place in our first year conference at the end of the spring semester of the first year. After the first year, when students move into the second year, the task is to propose and defend a master's thesis. The master's thesis often is research that is linked directly to the first year project. And in fact, many students include the first year project as one of 2 or possibly 3 studies as part of a master's thesis. That then represents kind of the fuller, more complete package of research compared to the first year project. Once a student has defended a master's thesis, and this will ideally, again, as I said, happen by the end of the second year, they can officially apply to transition from the early sort of master's portion of our program to the PhD portion of the program. And once they've done so, they can transition to now thinking about the space that occupies their minds with respect to the dissertation. And for us in the third year, we start that process by asking students to complete or write a conceptual review paper. And the conceptual review paper is really meant to be a comprehensive take on the literature in a particular area, ideally the literature that the student intends to conduct research in as part of their dissertation. So this is a good way to get familiar with that literature, make some links, develop a conceptual framework, and identify directions for future research. The paper is due typically in the summer after the third year, and then at the end of the fall semester of the fourth year, it culminates in a conceptual review presentation. And so that's one of 2 things that happen, or that ideally happen, in the fourth year in our program. In addition to presenting your conceptual review in our fourth year conference at the end of the fall semester, the fourth year is also a great time to propose your dissertation. And this involves writing up a proposal document that demonstrates the studies you want to do, explains why you want to do them on the basis of what has been published before you. And then you have a meeting with your committee where you propose that, and everybody works together to hone the ideas and make sure that you have a strong proposal moving forward. After you've proposed the dissertation, you can, of course, get IRB approval, conduct the research, and then ultimately write and defend your dissertation by the end of the 5th year. So defending the dissertation is the 5th year task. Ideally, it's completed by the end of the 5th year. There's one more milestone that spans multiple years, and that is the requirement to submit either a grant to an external agency or to submit an article for possible publication in a peer-reviewed journal. So that's a milestone that can be completed anywhere between years 1 through 4, and so it's across those 4 years of our program. So that concludes the milestone structure of our program. There's obviously lots more information that I could say right now, but I'll leave it at that for now. You can certainly refer to the graduate handbook if you have more specific questions about any of these milestones. Now I'd like to shift gears to thinking about some practical matters. One of the things that's very practically important to consider as you're thinking about applying to graduate programs is, how are you going to make a living? Our program, like many PhD programs, is fully funded. Graduate students in our program are guaranteed to have graduate assistant funding for up to 5 years. The funding eligibility is 4 years for folks who might have already earned a master's degree somewhere else and have applied for and been approved for advanced standing in our program. A teaching assistant is a person who is paid through their stipend to assist an instructor with their course. And as undergraduates, you're probably familiar with teaching assistants. Teaching assistants are present in many institutions, at least institutions that have both undergraduate and graduate programs. TAs in our department, and I think in many others, do things like meet with students, grade assignments, maybe run labs if they're a TA for a lab-based course, respond to questions, and just generally assist the instructor in many different ways. Another way that one can be funded as a graduate assistant is to be a research assistant. And this is somebody who's being also assisting somebody, but they're assisting a professor with their grant-funded research. And so this might entail things like designing experiments, collecting and analyzing data, writing manuscripts, the very same kinds of things that you might do for your own research, but in this case, being paid to do so for research that is funded by an external agency to the person that you're working with as your advisor. It is also possible to apply for external funding for fellowships through agencies like the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, and we very much encourage that as another way of having a stipend that will help you pay for the cost of living wherever you may be in graduate school, and we encourage that at Tufts as well. Okay, so yes, you get a stipend for being a graduate assistant, or maybe because you've earned a fellowship through some external agency. And regardless of your funding source, it's important to know that you won't pay tuition as a PhD student in psychology at Tufts University. Like many places, although tuition is charged, graduate students in our program receive full tuition scholarships, and that's guaranteed for the first 5 years. So even though tuition is a thing, it's not a thing that you have to worry about while you're in the program. You don't pay tuition. So you earn a stipend, and also the tuition is covered for you through a tuition scholarship. Also noteworthy that students in our program don't have to pay for health insurance. Tufts offers all of our PhD students student health insurance, and they also cover the health and wellness fee for the graduate school for up to 6 years. And finally, I noted before that the stipend that students receive for being a graduate assistant is a 9-month stipend, and summer support therefore isn't guaranteed. However, we do have some funding opportunities available to help cover living expenses during the summer months. So there are a number of different summer fellowships for students in the Tufts Psychology Ph.D. program. A couple of them are controlled or run by, administered by offices outside the department. That's the provost's office and the dean's office. They offer fellowships that we can apply for prospective students who might be joining us at Tufts. And these fellowships can help increase the amount of the stipend that students who receive these fellowships receive for at least a couple of years after they start their program with us. There are also some summer fellowships that the psychology department directly administers. We have 3 in particular: the Greenwald, the Pazinski, and the Steibel fellowships. These were each funded generously by donors to whom we're very thankful. They allow us to offer a number of different fellowships on a competitive basis to students in our program. Again, this helps to fund the summer months, and students are asked to apply for these to demonstrate the research that they're going to be conducting over the summer that the fellowship will help to support. So in addition to these summer fellowship opportunities, it is also possible for students to obtain internal funding, meaning funding here at Tufts, through the graduate school and the provost's office for things like conference travel and research. These would be sources of funding beyond the departmental funds that I already mentioned. The $300 professional development experience fund offered through psychology can be supplemented with internal funding through the graduate school and provost's offices. In addition, it's always possible to, as I mentioned before, apply for external fellowships and grants that would help to cover costs that can't be fully covered by these other resources. Okay, so that concludes the first portion of what I wanted to cover with for now. And what I'd like to do now is move on to the next part, which is to talk a little bit about what it's like to be in graduate school.